by the Montana Television Network. Montana This Morning continues on Montana's News Leader.
Today is day 33 of the partial government shutdown, and lawmakers are working on a new way to end it. I'm Mark Liverman, and I'll tell you why those efforts may not lead to much change.
I'm Emma Hamilton reporting from Bozeman, where the crime rate per 1,000 residents is the lowest in the state. I'll have more on the story coming up next.
6:30 on this snowy Wednesday. Chet Lehman, Missy O'Malley, Matt Elwell with you here. Matt, driving in was a little deceptive. The snow wasn't super heavy when I came in early.
No.
It was just that stuff that was underneath that made it really challenging.
And that's going to be our big issue today, is the ice is going to continue to be a problem for our community. You look at the area road reports, snow-covered or scattered snow and ice on the area roadways. The morning commute's going to be dicey. The evening commute's going to be terrible, I have a feeling, especially with some of those heavier bands of snow trying to work their way through. Temperatures right now into the 20s, teens out toward West Yellowstone. It doesn't look all that impressive on radar, but we do have winter storm warnings out for Gallatin County, winter weather advisories out for the surrounding area. The snow is expected to be in the range of 4 to 6, maybe 8 inches in the Bozeman area, 2 to 6 in Butte. We'll talk more about driving conditions and what to expect in just a few minutes.
Thank you, Matt. It's like we're having a snow day over here. We're so excited.
Which means we're all working full time. That's how a snow day goes in Montana this morning.
And of course, now we've reached day 33 of the partial government shutdown. Lawmakers in Washington are getting ready to take another stab at ending the longest shutdown in history.
But as CBS's Mark Liverman explains, their efforts may not amount to much.
Remind our lawmakers that they can ease the pain.
The Senate chaplain's opening prayer yesterday highlighted what 800,000 federal employees are facing, another week without pay.
Amen.
But on the Senate floor,
it's only a thinly veiled attempt by the president to save face.
The political divide remains 5 weeks into the partial government shutdown.
So they can look like champions of the so-called resistance?
Some glimmer of progress. Tomorrow, the Senate will hold dueling votes to reopen the government. One bill is built around President Trump's proposal.
The plan includes $5.7 billion for a strategic deployment of physical barriers, or a wall.
The other is a bill House Democrats passed. It funds the government through February 8th without wall funding. Neither appears to have the votes to succeed.
Shipmates.
Meanwhile, thousands of military and law enforcement members are among those working without pay. The Coast Guard's top admiral tweeted this video out last night.
I find it unacceptable that Coast Guard men and women have to rely on food pantries and donations.
The FBI Agents Association sent out a dire warning.
Failure to fund the FBI is making it more difficult for us to do our jobs, to protect the people of our country from criminals and terrorists.
They added the shutdown could lead some FBI agents to consider career options that provide more stability for their families. Mark Liverman, CBS News.
Now another pressure point for both sides, the State of the Union quickly approaching. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has threatened to cancel the president's January 29th address to Congress. The shutdown is not resolved. The White House says it's pushing ahead with plans for that speech next week. Where that speech would take place, though, is still a big question mark.
And the National Council for Home Safety and Security has ranked Bozeman as having the lowest crime rate per 1,000 people.
That's the lowest rate in the state of Montana. MTN's Emma Hamilton takes a look at what Bozeman is doing right.
As Bozeman continues to grow more and more each day, growth typically equals a higher crime rate. But that's not the case for this city.
I think that it's a result of the hard work of the men and women that work to keep Bozeman safe, as well as our partnership with the community. And so we've got alert citizens that are calling in when they see something that doesn't look right. And we work closely to try and resolve public safety issues. And so I think it's a result of that.
It's not only the police force enforcing, but it's also our community members looking after one another that also contribute to what I see as a really safe community, one that I feel comfortable raising my children in and allowing them to travel around the community without constant supervision.
Having a safe community is something that's attractive for people moving to Bozeman.
Public safety is important. It's a critical function of government. We take it very seriously. And it translates into an improved quality of life, a safer place to work, play, live, and recreate. And I think that it contributes to the overall, quality of life, growth, and kind of prosperity that Bozeman is experiencing.
By the way, the next 3 safest cities in the state are Helena, Great Falls, and Missoula. To see the whole report, simply head on over to our website.
And a Bozeman man was arrested for charging and fighting with a Bozeman police officer at a gas station on Monday night. 18-year-old Anthony Johnson appeared in Gallatin County Justice Court. He's charged with assault of a peace officer. The officer responded to a 911 call and then it hung up. He says he arrived, Johnson charged at him. He did not follow his commands to get back. The officer said Johnson reached for the officer's weapon and his taser as the two wrestled to the ground. Eventually, the officer subdued and handcuffed Johnson. Both the officer and Johnson were taken to Bozeman Health Deaconess for treatment. Johnson's bail is set at $7,500, and his next appearance will be February 15th.
Also out of the mining city, police in Butte are warning residents about a phone scam that's using the name of a well-known priest to try to con people out of money.
MTN's John Amy tells us how this con got started and how you can avoid it.
Butte police say a scammer sent text messages to people pretending to be a prominent priest in the Butte community, asking them to donate iTunes gift cards to children with cancer. This was just an attempt to con people out of money.
Asking the people to go buy an iTunes card, take a photo of it, text that photo of that ID, of that PIN number back to them.
The con man claimed to be Butte Parish priest Father Patrick Beretta in an effort to fool people.
They're using a well-known person in this community who has done several fundraisers, who is you know, big into Catholic charities and everything else. And so people would say, oh, it's coming from Father Beretta, it must be real. And it's not.
Father Beretta was alerted to this scam earlier this week when one of his parishioners became suspicious after receiving the text.
She's smart enough to know there was something off about the request, you know, and so she called me to make sure that it was authentic, and of course I told her that it was not.
Father Beretta says he often ministers to children going through cancer treatment. So he found it very disheartening that someone would use this serious issue to try to scam people.
Then using the generosity of people, the goodness of people that we have in this community, and the tenderness, the soft spot we all have in our hearts for young cancer patients, I think there was something particularly disgraceful about that, very despicable.
Father Beretta added that he does not solicit money for charity over the phone or text. In Butte, John Amy, MTN News.
Anyone getting a text like this or anything suspicious should contact local police. The case is still under investigation.
In other headlines, controversial logging project south of Bozeman gets a green light from the State Land Board. The board approved the Limestone West timber sale in a 5-0 vote. Project calls for cutting down trees in about just over 440 acres of land near the Triple Tree subdivision in Bozeman. Officials at the Department of Natural Resources Conservation tell MTN News first step will be selling the land, and then the timber harvest will probably begin sometime in June.
And today we bring you more on the results of our MTN News and Montana State University election poll.
Yeah, in the second of a 3-part series, MTN's Mike Dennison and MSU political analyst Dr. David Parker take a look at the polling results on the 2 big initiatives that were rejected by voters.
Initiative 185 would have extended Medicaid expansion, which provides government-funded health care to 95,000 low-income adults, and raised tobacco taxes to help pay for it. It failed, with 53% of Montana voters against it. Our poll showed an identical partisan split on I-185, with 79% of Democrats for it, 79% of Republicans against it, and independents 50-50 on the measure. Women slightly favored I-185 by 53 to 47%, while men strongly opposed it, 61 to 39%. The poll also showed I-185 failing among all age groups, except those ages 30 to 39 who favored the measure by a 55 to 45% margin. So did this just come down to a partisan thing on this initiative race?
With all the money that was being spent, largely by the tobacco companies on the 185 race, essentially the two sides polarized. What happened is Democrats moved to the yes column. And why? Because it became about health care and Medicaid. And Republicans and independents overwhelmingly moved to the no column, again, largely I think because of the issue of taxes. So in that sense, this race became polarized and, yes, about party issues. And people fell exactly where they expected, which is why the initiative lost.
Next, we'll take a look at the results for I-186. I-186 would have imposed new water treatment regulations on new hard rock mines. It went down with 56% of voters against it. Again, the partisan breakdown was remarkably similar according to our poll. 77% of Democrats supported the measure, 78% of Republicans voted no. But it failed among independents, with 54% opposed. Women were split 50-50 on I-186, and men came out strongly against it, by another 61 to 39% margin. Those with four-year or advanced college degrees, however, supported I-186 by respective amounts of 58% and 64%. 60% of voters with a high school diploma opposed it, and 87% of those with less than a high school education did as well. So this time around, is it just the same story as the previous initiative?
Slightly different. If you actually look at our pre-poll, Democrats were pretty much firmly in favor of this initiative, and that didn't change pre-post. What did happen in this case is those undecided voters overwhelmingly broke on the no position. And actually, that's what we normally would expect. That's the status quo position. And so what happened is Republicans then, overwhelmingly moved to no, and those undecided independents overwhelmingly moved to no as a result of the initiative. And I think to some extent, the money was largely dominated by the mining industry, and I think, they were successful in what they were trying to do, which was to stop this.
Tomorrow in our final segment, we'll look at the results on approval ratings for our elected officials and where Montana voters stand on some key issues. I'm Mike Dennison with David Parker, reporting from MTN News in Bozeman.
Now you can see the full poll results on our website. Just click on over KBZK, KXLF.com.
Fabulous.
Right now we're going to take a quick break. Here's a look at what's coming up on Montana this morning.
Every 2 hours, someone in the U.S. is killed while walking, according to a new report. I'm Chris Martinez with the changes advocates say need to be made to our roads.
Good morning to you. Ahead on CBS this morning, the partial government shutdown enters day 33, with Washington struggling to strike a deal. We'll talk to Jill Schlesinger about how the prolonged stalemate is impacting your money. Plus, Atlanta Falcons owner, that's Arthur Blank, there he is in Studio 57, how his city is preparing to host the Super Bowl, and what he thinks about the potential rule changes after that very controversial no call in the Saints-Rams game. People are still very mad about that. See you at 7 o'clock on the dot.